Hello, and we're back for another phone show. John, these things just keep on coming.
They do, they do.
We're here to talk phones, and this week it's the LG G3. John, are you excited about this phone?
I am. It's the first of the major manufacturers to really bring a QHD display. What does that mean? Well, that's more than the full HD displays that we're seeing on the likes of the S5, the M8 and the Z2. So it's a real leap forward in terms of tech. We've seen a couple of smaller Chinese manufacturers get on board with QHD, but they can't really be got hold of in the UK very easily.
So, I mean, the LG G3 is the first phone, like you said, to have a QHD screen. In terms of what that means, it's 4 times more than a 720p screen. It's a bit more, like 1.6 times more than, or maybe less than, sorry, 0.8 times more than a 1080p screen. So, it's sharper and it's sort of, the next level, but it's not, the jump from 1080 to 4K, which a lot of people are expecting. And that's actually probably the biggest, I don't want to say criticism of the G3, but I was hoping when I picked it up and I watched a video for the first time, like, this is amazing. LG spent a long time explaining how Apple had got it wrong. Retina displays weren't the sharpest the eye could see. They needed to be as good as high quality art books, and that is about 540 ppi, which is just about what this is. And I wasn't blown away, and I feel bad for wanting something so good, but it's it should have been a more high risk screen, I think.
I think more of QHD is more about the subtle differences, maybe the ones that you don't appreciate straight off the bat. It's a better colour reproduction, it's a sharper text, which makes reading far more comfortable for your eyes. As you said, they're going for sort of the art book high resolution. So when reading long bits of text, your eyes aren't straining as much, and it's because everything's a lot cleaner and sharper.
See, I get that, but I don't think at this level, at the 5.5 inch, the differences between 440 ppi and 538 are that different to make it so it's really worthwhile. And also the problem you've got with that is, LG has, and said it was going to make the pixels more efficient so that they get more light out. Because obviously, if you've got more pixels in there, less light is going to come out because there's more frames to block the light out. LG says it's trying to sort of minimise that problem, but you angle the phone around and it does get dark really easily. It does need quite a straight-on view to be really effective. I mean, that said, it is still a brilliant screen. It's just that the G2 had a brilliant screen at full HD, and I'm worried that it's technology for the sake of technology.
But we can say that about a lot of phones and a lot of features a lot of phones bring, and at the end of the day, everyone's striving to be better, have the next thing on the phone, and QHD was inevitable. It was always going to happen, and LG just happened to be the first of the big manufacturers to do it. We're hearing HTC and Samsung may be doing prime versions of the S5 and the M8, which apparently may have the QHD displays as well. So it looks like everyone else is going to sort of jump on that bandwagon. Whether there's a huge advantage for the end consumer, that's yet to be seen. Yeah,
and you're right. I mean, things do move on, and people, manufacturers do bring technology to phones that people don't necessarily need. I mean, you can argue a lot of things we don't need, but it becomes something that you expect, and it becomes quite cool. And yeah, maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, QHD screens will be brilliant, and LG will probably be at the forefront of that because it is a brilliant display manufacturer. I doubt any other manufacturer, bar possibly Samsung, Apple with a decent contract, could do as high res an image as that and still have it working so well. I mean, this we've got here is a pre-production sample from Korea. It's not finished and it's not fully ready, and yet still, despite LG saying the battery might not be so good, it's actually held up fine for me. It's been as good as I expected, the HTC One M8 to be. It lasts easily a day, and it doesn't, the screen off it draws no power, which is brilliant. But like I said, I really like the G2. It was, this sort of the weird UI aside and the plastic, the kind of the glossy plastic, it was an almost perfect phone, I thought. And when we've seen this, which has now got a metallic skin and a much improved UI, I thought this would be it. This would be the perfect phone, but for some reason it just doesn't quite fit together. I don't know, it's still missing something. And I think that metallic skin is probably part of the reason.
So LG has revisited its Android interface on the LG G3, updating it from the G2, which we found a little bit cluttered in places.
More than a little bit, it was
and
awful.
A bit childish as well.
Yeah, it was just crazy. I mean, you pulled down the notifications bar. If you had like the Q remote, the remote control
slide apps as well.
For anything enabled there, it was just already you couldn't see your messages, and that was just bonkers. And LG has gone back and dialed everything right back, and it's done it very well. It's turned, it's gone from skeuomorphism to flat, and I know that's basically what Apple did last year, but it's still a welcome addition. It does look a lot better. It's a much nicer way of doing things. Everything just looks a lot more premium, and it's more uncluttered. It's just more fresh. So yeah, I mean, I think that's been something that's been really impressive.
It does feel like LG has taken design cues from a couple of other UIs. There's a little bit of Samsung TouchWiz, a little bit of their magazine UI in the weather widget. There's clear sort of iOS hints as well in there to sort of combine that sort of slightly more premium and cleaner look and feel.
Yeah, it's definitely taken some cues from other manufacturers. I mean, Samsung's TouchWiz was very cartoony. It was still very bright even in the new version for the Galaxy S5. And I think it and LG before, we've always been trying to appeal to a populace that likes this cartoony, bright vibe to its overlays. LG has got a lot more muted. It's said we've got more mature colours, so darker browns, more muted greens. And I think it definitely works better in making it a more professional interface. There's definitely more than a hint of Apple in there. It's looked at what Johnny Ive has done, and maybe not taken the colour palette, which a lot of people have criticised anyway, but the kind of the flatter, sleeker way of moving through the phone is definitely there. Similar to Samsung as well, we've got this, if you go to the end of the home screens, you've got, instead of the pointless magazine, which was just weird from Samsung, you've now got 2 sections with a pedometer and helpful videos. Neither of them are largely irrelevant. Pedometers on phones are not doing much, and helpful videos are just that, not helpful. But it's definitely a step forward, and I like the way it looks, and I like the way that it's a more clean interface. I just hope that it comes to the G2, to be honest, because people that have got that phone are crying out for an update on that front, and yeah, it shows LG is more serious and it's pushing forward.
Are you finding that it's still a fluid interface? It's got the same Snapdragon 801 processor as the likes of the S5, the Z2, the M8. It's got 2 or 3 gig of RAM, depending if you get the 16
That's
or 32
weird, isn't
gig.
it?
That is a very strange sort of spec.
Yeah, you get 2 gigabytes of RAM if you've got a 16 gig version of the phone. It's 3 gigabytes if you take the 32 gig. I get the feeling that if in most markets you'll get one or the other, you won't get this choice because, and at the moment, 3 gig of RAM is just there because people want more RAM. Doesn't really need it. You'd be struggle to really point to a reason for buying a phone just for more RAM. People talk about the Sony Xperia Z2 being the only one with 3 gigs. Unless you're connecting your phone up to a big screen and constantly using it as a main device or doing really heavy lifting, it's just there for overhead. It's just there to make you feel more secure. It's the same as a removable battery.
Or
most
a 64-bit chip.
Exactly, yeah. And but the 64-bit chips are largely irrelevant now as well because they don't have the RAM to back it up. If you're not going to do 4 gigs of RAM, then there's not really much point. So yeah, but like I said, LG is, it's making strides through. This is pre-production. This is early doors software. It's still a bit sluggish, to be honest with you, and I'm looking forward to getting our final reviewing it in with proper software because this doesn't really have the snap of the 801 that we've seen on the HTC or the Galaxy S5. But like I said, it's early software, and this is a very common thing to see. Even the camera is acceptable. I was worried that might take too much of a processor because you've got the laser autofocus, you've got a lot more processing going on. It's the same 13 megapixels as before, but with a larger sensitivity, so it's meant to be slightly brighter.
Is it still lacking in comparison to the S5 and the Z2, 16 megapixels, 20.7 in comparison? Is it sort of lacking in that camera area?
No, it's the same as the G2. The G2 didn't lag behind really. I mean, we had the G2 as the best camera phone simply because 13 megapixels, let's be honest, is more than enough for a camera phone. I still maintain that 5 is fine. For what we do with them, we take pictures and we put them online. If you want to print them out, yeah, admittedly, get a bit higher. Go for 8 or above. But for day-to-day snapping, lower megapixels means more light. It's the HTC's thing, quicker shutter speed, and that's what matters. So 13 megapixels in this is absolutely fine. Again, the software is such that the camera doesn't have that super fast performance that I was looking for. Especially with that laser focus. Yeah. It's not as fast as it could be. It's the same thing as with the Galaxy S5, but. And the pictures, this is something LG's had before. They come out quite muddy. It does a lot of post-processing to make the picture look clean and clear. But then if you zoom in at all, you suddenly see that the colours are running together a little bit. There's a lack of detail at zoom. So, be aware of that. I don't think that's going to get fixed because, like I said, I've seen it with the G2, and it's something that LG is noted for. But it's still, it's still a really good camera. The front-facing option as well. LG calls it a selfie camera. It makes me sad. But
a lot of people are. At least it's not a goofy.
Oh yeah, Huawei's great word. But it does have the feature of you hold the camera out and then you hold your thing and do that.
And it
starts the photo. It's a novelty and it's actually quite useful.
It did work. We tried it at the LG event.
We had a great time. Yeah.
We took a brilliant selfie.
Yeah.
And yeah, it worked fine. And it's those sort of things that need to work well. Because time and again we see gimmicks like that and you do it and it doesn't register, but it seems to pick it up straight away.
LG is the best, possibly along with Samsung, at making things work, let's be honest. The problem with the G2 is it was just everything in one place, and you know, it has to all work, and that's why we've got the crazy interface, and you know, loads of different functions that people might not use. And it's the same, but LG and Samsung are both really good at packing in loads of features, and that's a good thing. It's just that educating consumers on how to use it means that sometimes the messages can get lost. LG is all about, it says, you know, simple is the new smart for this phone. So I think, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I'm sad that the UK version isn't getting this. You know, I wish all phones had a little aerial, but unfortunately we can't get the same TV signal.
If you want a phone with an aerial, just go back 10 years.
Yeah, exactly, the Nokia days. But yeah, so I think, yeah, this phone isn't going to, you know, light up the sales charts. We're not going to see this in the top 10, I don't think, which is a shame because I feel like it deserves a good place, and you know, I'm looking forward to seeing where we put it in our best smartphone roundup. But ultimately, yeah, I think LG's done well, and I think it's done the right stuff and made a good phone overall.
And that's it for another phone show. Thank you very much for watching. Gareth, thanks for coming along.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. It's been a great time.
Quite all right.
Please enjoy TechRadar a little bit more by liking us on Facebook, subscribing to our YouTube channel, or just leaving a comment below, because we love to hear from you. Yeah.
The finest air-popped corn coated generously in our original recipe caramel, an exquisite crunch with a handsome coating.
Yeah.
Wow.